Well, the list of local lawyers keeps growing. And of course, court TV is always going to be a great giant reservoir of local lawyers because that's all they hire. And we have a real dingling right here by the name of Julie Grant, and she's going to compound the lunacy by bringing another lawyer in who's just as local. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnny Walker Dredd to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnny Walker Dredd Show.
Now we're going to have two seasoned lawyers. They have Juris Doctorates, and they're going to go on here and tell us about whether the plea deal was right or wrong. And here's what's going to happen. They're going to screw up the law, they're going to screw up the facts, and they are going to put 2 and 2 together and get 5 because they're local. Here we go.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julie Grant. It is great to have you with us on this Monday afternoon. Wow.
By the way, they call her the professor because she's supposed to be such a big scholar. We'll see.
We're in a recess in the case in Dane County, Wisconsin. We want to switch gears to Kenosha County, Wisconsin. You remember in the fall, our cameras were there for the trial of defendant Kyle Rittenhouse.
Did you screw up the Dane County news event as well?
We want to focus now on someone who was a key witness in the Rittenhouse case. The man who was accused by prosecutors of providing the gun that Rittenhouse used to fatally shoot 2 men and injured a third during those protests in Kenosha appeared in court today for a plea agreement that was accepted by the court. This is him. This is Dominick Black. He was initially charged with 2 felony counts of delivering a dangerous weapon.
Hey, Dominick, you look a little worried there.
To a minor that resulted in death. Rittenhouse was 17 years old, unable to buy that gun on his own. And this guy was what is called in the law a straw purchaser. When you go, you buy a gun, you say it's for you, but actually you're buying it for somebody else. That is against the law.
So right away, you can tell that she has completely fouled this thing up. Let's go back and listen to her read the charges.
The man who was accused by prosecutors of providing the gun that Rittenhouse used to fatally shoot 2 men and injured a third.
Let's see, how did she phrase it? Providing the gun. There was no mention of a purchase.
During those protests accepted by the court. This is him. This is Dominick Black. He was initially charged with 2 felony counts of delivering a dangerous weapon to a minor.
Let's see here. Let's read that. Delivering a dangerous weapon to a minor. I don't hear anything there about a purchase.
That resulted in death. Rittenhouse was 17 years old, unable to buy that gun on his own. And this guy was what is called in the law a straw purchaser.
Oh, yeah, a straw purchaser. See, she's got it fouled up.
When you go, you buy a gun, you say it's for you, but actually you're buying it for somebody else. That is against the law. He testified as a state's witness during the case, so he cooperated with prosecutors. Even though they were prosecuting him as well, he gave this testimony before the conclusion of his case. And he said that during the trial that the gun strap would have made it difficult for someone to pry it away, which sort of undermined the defense's theory that Rittenhouse feared losing control of his weapon.
Yeah, they didn't need Dominick Black to testify on that behalf. Anybody could have testified to that. They could have just simply put one of the police officers up there who had examined the strap and who knew about those straps. It would have been easy. They didn't need Dominick. But I tell you what, if you really think that that strap made it impossible for somebody to take the rifle from him, why don't you put the rifle around you and then try to stop me from getting your gun? Of course, if you lose, I get to shoot you. Would you do it? Of course not. So maybe you don't have as much faith in that theory as you think you do.
He also testified that he hoped that taking the stand would lead to some leniency in his own case, of course. Well, his attorneys struck up a plea agreement with the lead prosecutor on this case, Thomas Binger, who we know was largely responsible for trying this case for the state. And wait till you hear this deal. So this happened today. So the prosecutor withdrew those 2 felony charges, replaced it with what is a non-criminal citation for contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Okay, something that is non-criminal, you might think of it like, you could liken it to a traffic citation, something so low it's not even rising to the level of a misdemeanor. It's like a summary offense. So it was reduced to that, where he would plead no contest to that charge of contributing, or not, it's not even a charge, it's a citation. Let me be very clear. So that citation of contributing to the delinquency of a child.
Now, so far, so good. But one thing about court TV is you can always depend on them to bring you the facts. Whatever they tell you, you can bank on it. Let's listen in a little bit longer.
Pay a $200 fine.
I'm crazy. I'm the loco one.
Yeah, a $200 fine. Wow, Dominick, you really are a wheeler and dealer.
And otherwise, the rest of it is dismissed. Those other charges were withdrawn. The judge agreed that portion of the case against him, that criminal case involving these 2 felonies that would both carry a penalty of up to 6 years in prison if convicted, would all go away.
I know what Dominick's thinking in this picture. He's thinking to himself, you know, when it's all said and done, I bet a bunch of loco lawyers are going to totally screw this thing up.
So essentially, it's almost like something on the level of a traffic offense was agreed to here for this guy, for this straw purchase of that AR-15.
Again, it wasn't about the purchase. She really thinks that Dominick was up on charges of purchasing the rifle for Kyle. That's how little they know about this case. The purchase had nothing to do with the charges. Nothing whatsoever.
Let me bring in former prosecutor and civil rights attorney Arick Fudali, standing by in New York to react to this agreement. Arick, what do you think?
Now, here's what you need to do. When you don't have enough local, you need to bring in a civil rights lawyer, because that's one thing you can always depend on, is they're going to come out with local law, and he's no different. Again, this is a case about gun charges, about the legality of possessing a rifle, or in their own minds about the purchase of a rifle. And they bring in a civil rights lawyer to comment. Yes, and he is going to show you why you shouldn't do that. But they do it anyway, and you know why. It's because no matter how stupid they can be, they're always guaranteed to give you a nice political angle. And that's what court TV is looking for here.
Please.
It's frustrating, and it's a real this entire thing is just such a miscarriage of justice. It's such a tragedy. Right? Like, just looking at the facts and looking at what's been admitted and is not in question, right? That this Dominick Black bought a firearm for Kyle Rittenhouse, a minor.
See, you put 2 brains together and they still can't get it. I mean, they both think that Dominick Black was facing charges for the purchase. You would have thought that one of the 2 would have straightened out the other, but no, well, not when you're dealing with court TV. Remember, they're not on my local lawyers list for nothing.
Kyle Rittenhouse then travels and ultimately kills 2 people, or multiple people, with a gun. That gun that Dominick Black bought for him. And there's not a single criminal conviction here. Right. I mean, it's just such a tragedy that there's just no conviction now. This is basically he's getting a traffic ticket for buying Kyle Rittenhouse the gun, which was used to kill multiple people. It's just it's tragic, you know, as someone, you know, involved in this, someone who's been, you know, watching this, you know, play out, you know, day by day by day, to really see all as this ends, just not a single criminal conviction, multiple dead, shot by a gun, and nothing and nothing to show for it.
It's a real tragedy. What's happened to our standards for the law field, the Juris Doctorate, the bar exam? That's the real tragedy here. I'm not a lawyer, but I know the law regarding straw purchases and possession of weapons by minors better than he does. That should not happen. He's confused. He's despondent and frustrated because he doesn't understand the law. And that's really inexcusable.
It's tragic is what it is.
Mm-hmm. And I also think this deal was unnecessary. I agree.
Oh, by the way, I got to say something here. Yes, people died, but that doesn't mean people have to go to prison. You see, there's also this thing he doesn't understand, and that's self-defense. He doesn't get that. The fact that the gun was used to kill people, sure, in self-defense, to protect somebody. But to be honest with you, he does understand it, because when Crystal Kaiser comes up for trial here, he's going to do a 180. And all of a sudden, this argument that people died, so somebody should have to go to prison, is going to go fall by the wayside, because he's a big time phony. This is about bias. He wanted Kyle and Dominick convicted because of who they are, or because of who he thinks they are. And that is right-wing conservatives. Young kids, they're white, they probably like Trump, and therefore, my God, somebody has to pay for these crimes. Wait till Crystal Kaiser comes around, a young black female, and he's going to turn around and say she had to have the gun. He was raping her. And of course, he's not going to get into the facts, right? But he was raping her. She had to use that gun. And, well, yeah, he died, but she shouldn't go to prison. Okay, so this whole argument that somebody died, therefore somebody has to go to prison, is going to evaporate. Guarantee it. I guarantee it.
Agree with everything you said, Arick, and really thinking about this.
Ooh, she's thinking about this, everybody. Get ready. It's going to get dangerous.
Because it's tricky. We know what he has done here is he was a straw purchaser. That is a state crime. That is a federal crime. That is totally against the law. You can't go buy a gun with someone else's money, say it's for you, give the gun to them. We know what happened with the gun here horrifically.
I have an idea. Before you say it's against state law, perhaps you should know state law with respect to a straw purchase. Now, keep in mind, Dominick Black was not facing straw purchase charges. The charges he faced had nothing to do with the purchase of the rifle. They'll never understand that in a million freaking years. But let's suppose it was. Dominick Black's purchase of the rifle for Kyle, if that's what took place, still didn't violate state law. Why? Well, guess what? State law says that you cannot purchase a rifle or any weapon or any firearm for somebody if they have been expressly forbidden to possess it. A felony. So if you have an uncle and the court has basically decided that he cannot possess a rifle, maybe he's done some crimes or something. In other words, he's been forbidden to have a rifle, and his possession of that rifle would constitute a felony. You can't buy him a rifle. You can't skirt state law by purchasing the rifle for him. However, Kyle was not expressly forbidden to possess the rifle. At most, his possession would have been a misdemeanor, even if it had been illegal. Therefore, Wisconsin law does not outlaw the purchase of a rifle for somebody else under those circumstances. And all you had to do was read the statutes, and you would have known that. But you can't be bothered to do that.
So this is just wrong. But then it's also unnecessary for him to have been this witness, because as we found out during the trial, that gun charge was not properly on there for Kyle Rittenhouse. It's as strange and crazy as it sounds. Legally in the state of Wisconsin, he was allowed to open carry that rifle because the rifle didn't have a shortened barrel that would make it illegal under the law. So as nutty as that sounds, what he was doing wasn't illegal. Those prosecutors should have known that.
She can't even analyze that situation right. And guess what? She's not alone. A lot of pro-Kyles have fouled this thing up. They're going on Twitter and YouTube and saying that the reason why Kyle could possess the rifle was because it was not a short-barreled rifle. Wrong. That had little to do with it. Everybody knew that it was not a short-barreled rifle. You can't sell a short-barreled rifle in Wisconsin. And since he bought it at a hardware store, very few people, only a conspiracy weirdo, would think that his rifle was shorter than the prescribed length. That was never an issue. The issue had to do with the certificate of accomplishment that, according to Binger, that he would need in order to possess the rifle. Mark Richards, on the other hand, said that because Kyle was not hunting, he didn't need that certificate. And that was the real issue. It wasn't the length of the rifle. I have 4 or 5 videos on this. Oh my God.
They didn't need to proceed on those charges. They should have been withdrawn. The judge did everything right by kicking it at that point. It should have been kicked before we got to trial. So when I think about this, why are they giving this guy a deal when they didn't need his testimony? I get it when you need the testimony of someone, but here it's like we've got the video of the gun possession and all that. Who cares with this guy? Let him go to trial on the felony charges. What do you think, Arick, please?
Let me tell you what I think. I think that a Juris Doctorate isn't what it used to be. And the reason why I say that is because, let me think here. I'm going to go back to the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. And I'm thinking about this. And I'm thinking about the charges that Kyle was facing. And he had that gun charge. And, oh, wait, there were other charges. There was murder. There was attempted murder. And there was reckless endangerment. I'm wondering if maybe Dominick Black was on the stand to help Binger nail Kyle for some of those other things. And it wasn't really about the rifle. She's right in the sense that he didn't need Dominick Black to get up on the stand to nail Kyle for minor in possession, because that was a given. If that was the law, of course, the judge threw that out. But whatever the case, that wasn't Binger's deal. He wanted Dominick Black to get on the stand and implicate Kyle in provoking the attacks. And he specifically asked Dominick, did you see Kyle point the rifle at anyone? Dominick said he could not recall it. And you could tell that Binger was pissed. He was expecting Dominick to come in and say, well, yeah, there was this one time. Was that a deal they worked out beforehand? And Dominick simply changed his mind on the stand? We don't know. But whatever the case, Binger didn't put Dominick on the stand to try to nail Kyle for a gun charge. He had bigger fish to fry. And you know it, because when the judge threw out the gun charge, Binger didn't even say anything.
I absolutely agree. And to even go even further than that.
That's one thing about Loco Lawyers. They always agree with each other because they're all local.
This was an easy case to prove. He admitted he bought him the gun. Right. So this wasn't the type of case where the prosecutors were have to get over a lot of, mounds, of difficulty trying to prosecute this guy and try to prove his guilt. It looks like based on the evidence we have, it was going to be an easy trial for the prosecution.
Really? I tell you what, Arick, if you would have tried to prosecute Dominick Black for a gun purchase, I could have went up against you as Dominick's lawyer and beat you. I promise you I could have. So don't tell us how easy it would have been to nail Dominick Black for a straw purchase. Because one, even if it was a straw purchase, Wisconsin law expressly allows it. Number two, it wasn't a straw purchase.
I guess perhaps they're coming from the standpoint, well, they don't want to give the guy who bought the gun, a sentence or some sort of criminal conviction when the guy who used the gun didn't get a criminal conviction. I suppose there's some backwards logic there, but it's very clear that if Dominick Black had not at least bought the gun for Kyle Rittenhouse, perhaps you could make the argument that these other people, would still be alive today, who ultimately Kyle Rittenhouse shot. So,
yeah, that's generally true in self-defense cases. Mr. Juris Doctorate here, remember, they have to get a Juris Doctorate and they have to pass a bar exam to be a lawyer. Okay. This guy evidently did both. I don't know how, but he did both. And he is making an argument that, well, if the person who possessed that gun and was acquitted on account of self-defense, if he didn't have the gun, those assailants would still be alive today. Yeah, maybe they shouldn't be. You ever think about that? That in self-defense cases, the fact that the assailant died does not necessarily make the shooting a crime or make it unfortunate.
It's very confusing, the logic here. Again, this just goes back to really just a real tragedy of justice that happened here. Multiple people, dead and not a single criminal conviction for it.
That's right. Multiple people dead. Therefore, somebody should go to prison. And again, wait until Crystal Kaiser comes up. Randall Volar, her rapist, died. And according to his logic, somebody should go to prison. Well, maybe not with Crystal Kaiser. All of a sudden, his logic will flip 180 degrees. I absolutely guarantee it.
Right.
You're making such great points, Arick, as you always do.
Oh, yeah. You always make great points, Arick.
I want to go back to the trial. We have a clip of when Dominick Black testified. Let's take a listen to some of what was said. I believe we have that clip.
Now, notice something. They're going to play the clip, and they're not really going to listen to it. You'll see why Arick would have no chance of getting a straw purchase conviction. Hang on.
No, he's 17, right? Yeah. You already got the rifle?
Yeah, it's mine. I got it from my dad's house.
Okay.
Yeah, it's mine.
You already got the rifle?
Yeah, it's mine. I got it from my dad's house.
Okay. So it's your rifle?
Yeah.
It's your rifle? Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I thought this was a straw purchase for Kyle. I thought that Dominick Black was admitting that he bought the gun for Kyle. But he's claiming here it's his rifle.
He bought it with his money, but I got it for him. And the deal was, it's to stay at my dad's house, and you only take it up north with us hunting. And I guess his mom's supposed to get a FOID card here, so it can be put in her name.
Okay.
But he got it from my dad's house in Kenosha.
Okay.
Right. He used Kyle's money, but when he bought the rifle, he kept it at his house. And Kyle was only allowed to use it with his dad around. So it really wasn't Kyle's rifle. If it was Kyle's rifle, he could take the rifle with him. It's his property, right?
It was never given to him.
So did he pick up today from your house? From your dad's house?
Yeah, I think so. I think he grabbed it before we left.
Okay. And you knew he had it?
Yeah, I don't know why the whole time I'm thinking, I'm like, he's not 18. I don't know why I'm thinking the whole time.
I'm not looking, I mean,
Yeah, the
bigger fish to fry, that's not what I'm looking at you for, so.
Yeah, I know, but like in my head, like I could have stopped it. But I know if I would have told him no, he would have threw a fit.
Well, how would you be able to tell him no if it was his rifle? All the testimony we're hearing here indicates that Dominick Black bought the rifle for layaway. He was going to keep the rifle until Kyle turned 18, and then they would, get this, legally transfer ownership to Kyle. In other words, Kyle was not the owner of the rifle.
Well, Arick, and we called up that clip to underscore your point you just made about how they had the admission. They had the admission on tape, so no
Admission of what?
It's more like, zany or goofy. Yeah.
need to wheel and deal. Tell me, if they were intent on dealing, do you think what would have been better than completely dismissing this case, asking the court to dismiss it, getting rid of the felonies, and going to something that is like a traffic ticket, that they could have gone somewhere in the middle with maybe a misdemeanor offense so that this guy isn't a felon, he can become gainfully employed throughout his life? Do you think that would have been a more just result here?
They did offer a misdemeanor. Dominick Black turned it down because he knew that Binger didn't have much of a case. But at the same time, Binger could have appealed the dropping of the gun charges, which would have tied this thing up for another year in the appeals process. And while it was doing that, Dominick Black would have to stay on bail, and it would have limited his ability to get a job or go into the military. And he wasn't guaranteed that the appeals court would side in his favor, so he did the smart thing, and he did take the plea deal. But he turned down the misdemeanor.
Probably, and that's, I think, something that's being lost here, that, right, there is a level between felony and non-criminal, basically a citation. And
Oh, there's a lot more being lost here than that, but okay.
that's misdemeanor. So I'm sure there was a misdemeanor charge that could have been charged with here that would have led to at least one criminal conviction in this entire case. And watching that clip back, you're reminded there's a reason you're not allowed to buy a gun for a minor.
Oh, this is good. Listen to this.
Right. And this is the reason, because a minor shouldn't have a gun, because look at the consequences.
Because they might defend themselves. He forgets Kyle was acquitted on account of self-defense. Oh, I love the freeze there. Huh, that's great. So in his view, Kyle should not have had that gun there. And if it got him brained or killed, that's okay. Guess what? He's a conservative. And he's even worse. He's white. And of course, he makes an even bigger mistake. And that is, get this, Arick, the straw purchase law says nothing about age. Doesn't say anything about that. So the purpose of the law is not to keep minors from having guns. In Wisconsin, the purpose of the law is to keep felons from having them. The purpose of the law is to keep people who have already been told by a court they can't have a weapon from having one. Kyle does not fit under that category, and neither do minors.
What happened when Kyle Rittenhouse was able to possess that gun?
Yeah, he defended himself. I really bet that pisses you off, doesn't it, Arick?
People died, right? So there is a reason. This isn't buying alcohol for a minor or someone under 21. This is buying a deadly, dangerous weapon for
That one that you can use to defend yourself.
someone who is under the age to legally, possess that weapon, or should be under the age of legally possess that weapon. So, there's a reason this law exists, and the fact that there's just no criminal conviction for it is really, really shocking to me.
Okay, let me explain another thing. All right, you brain dead asshole. Let's think about the Constitution. You've heard of this, right? Let's see here. You're saying that it would be okay for an 18-year-old to possess a rifle to defend his life, but not a 17-year-old. Gee, the last time I looked, we actually put in place more freedom for minors to protect themselves than adults. But you're saying that a person's right to self-defense would depend on his age. That is dumb and it's unconstitutional. Your entire argument is a farce. And if you tried to press that idea in court, I would bring to the judge the whole concept of self-defense as being a fundamental right of all humans, and especially minors. So if anyone should be allowed to use a gun to protect themselves against a deadly threat, it's a minor, not an adult.
Right. Let's talk about something else, please, Arick.
Oh, yeah, please. Let's talk about something else for a change, because we need to change the subject. Maybe onto something more woke, something that you might know something about.
Arick, I want your best educated guess on this. We
Oh, he's going to give us an educated guess. Oh, this ought to be good.
know there were no federal charges for Dominick Black, when arguably there could have been. We know you can't be a straw purchaser under state law and federal law.
That's not what the law says, asshole.
And I also know the ATF has a lot of broad discretion in their cases. The Supreme Court has ruled, very broadly. There's a lot of discretion here. When you go to buy a gun, you can't lie on that federal form.
He didn't. That's all there is to it. He didn't. Yeah, Kyle gave him the money for the gun, but that doesn't mean he's buying the gun for Kyle to possess. And he didn't.
Can't say that it's for you when it's, in fact, for someone else.
If it was bought for Kyle and it's Kyle's gun, Kyle could have taken it with him if he wanted to. It's his property, but it wasn't his property, was it?
Do you think the reason they didn't pursue anything with him could be, I know the federal government isn't really going to go after low-hanging fruit, so to speak. They're going to go after bigger cases. There's, a lot more to be dealt with. But here also
That's not what low-hanging fruit means, but okay.
Maybe because he was lined up as a state witness in this very high-profile state case. Do you think that could have had something to do with it? I'm curious to get your take, please.
Yeah, it's all speculation, all right? We don't really know what went into this decision, because based on all objective facts, it seemed like this would have been an easy prosecution. We had the admission on tape, and his testimony really wasn't that important in the trial. So we're sort of speculating here. My best guess, and again, just pure speculation, is that perhaps they thought, listen, Kyle Rittenhouse is not convicted. He wasn't convicted. There was no murder here. It was an acquittal. So why are we going to get a conviction for someone else who was a more, distant part of the killing? Maybe that's what they're saying, that that's not just for Kyle Rittenhouse to walk away while the guy who bought him the gun has to have some sort of conviction.
And it was an educated guess, but you got it wrong, but okay.
Conviction. But again, that's just a guess, because, looking at objective standards, it doesn't really make sense why there wasn't at least a more robust prosecution here.
got to know the law, got to know what happened. And you have to put 2 and 2 together and get 4, not 5. If you had done all those things, you would know why Binger offered such a sweet deal. I know why he offered it. Most of those who were very familiar with the case know why he offered it, but not you.
That's a really good educated guess.
Oh, yeah. Very good. Give him a little gold star. He can take that and put it on his refrigerator when he gets home.
You're right, because we know in criminal cases, you've done it, I've done it, Eric, you're going to go after the person you feel, is the major perpetrator of the crime. And if other people who might be an accomplice or a witness can help further that end goal, then you do it. And here we know he walked away a free man.
Oh, that just kills you, doesn't it? Well, okay. All right. Where are the mistakes? 1, didn't read the charges. If they had read the charges carefully, they would realize that the purchase of the rifle was never an issue here. It was about the delivery of the rifle to Kyle that night, regardless of whether Dominick had even bought the gun at all, or if he had given Kyle one of his dad's guns. It wouldn't have mattered. It would have been the same charge. Number 2, complete misunderstanding of self-defense. This whole idea somehow that, well, Kyle may have been found to be not guilty because of self-defense, but, well, if he hadn't shot anybody, they would still be alive. Good grief. Number 3, understanding what really happened. Okay, so let me explain this to everybody. Yes, Dominick Black was charged with delivering a rifle to Kyle. Okay, and there was a modifier on that stated that if that rifle had been used to kill somebody or seriously injure somebody, that they could actually raise it to the level of a felony. All right. When the judge threw out the charge against Kyle, it also made it legal for Dominick Black to give those rifles to Kyle. There was nothing outlawing that anymore. Therefore, the judge was going to throw out the charge against Dominick Black as well. Now, a lot of people have said, well, then, why did Dominick Black even agree to anything? He was clearly in the clear. No, he wasn't. And here's why. Binger was going to appeal the dropping of those charges, which meant that it was going to go to an appeals court. And the appeals court is mostly, not by much, but mostly made up of liberal judges. There are 9 on the appeals court. 3 of them would have been chosen at random. And there was a very good chance that 2 of those 3 would be liberals, and they very well might side with Binger. If they did, Dominick Black is now back on the hook for serious felony charges. Even if Dominick had won, he would have still had to been waiting a year for this thing to play out with all the stress that goes with it. Plus, he would have had to stay on bail, which means he would have to abide by all the bail agreements. Finally, he couldn't get a lot of jobs because he was facing gun charges. So even if Dominick had won the appeal, he still would have lost in the end. Therefore, taking the plea bargain was absolutely the right thing, and only an idiot would think otherwise. But because Binger knew that Dominick really didn't want to have to go through all that, he was not willing to drop the charges completely. So he offered him this low-level ticket, essentially. Dominick looked at that and said, oh, hells yeah. He accepted it. Smart dude. Binger got to save a little face. I guess everybody in the end goes home happy. But these 2 idiots will never figure it out in a million freaking years. So, Eric, Julie, welcome to my list of Loco Lawyers.
With this bandana, I welcome you to the game.
Like my video and subscribe to my channel.